Welcome to the Oregon Statewide Assessment System training module for the ELA and Mathematics state tests. This module is a required part of annual training for all district and school test coordinators, as well as ELA and Mathematics test administrators. The topics covered in this module include a brief update on Oregon's state tests in both ELA and Mathematics for the current school year, scheduling considerations, appropriate administration, key elements of each test, and available resources including features related to online testing. References to specific sections of Oregon's Test Administration Manual and the Oregon Accessibility Manual are included within slides where applicable. These resources are also hyperlinked at the end of this presentation. We encourage you to bookmark these in your browser for future reference, as well as the ODE Student Assessment homepage. Before we begin, here is a helpful list for your reference of acronyms that you will find in these slides. This section includes any changes to the ELA and Mathematics tests for the current school year, as well as some important reminders about newer features to each test. The OSAS ELA test consists of two components: a computer adaptive test, or CAT, and a performance task. Students are assessed on the Oregon English Language Arts standards in the areas of reading, writing, listening, and research. The ELA CAT consists of approximately 24 to 25 items, and the ELA performance task consists of one research item and one writing extended response, or full writing composition. Estimated testing time for completing both the ELA CAT and PT is shown on the slide for planning purposes. As a reminder, text-to-speech was expanded as a designated support for the OSAS ELA test in preparation for the 2019-20 administration. Test administrators will be able to set text-to-speech settings for the ELA CAT and ELA PT tests independently of each other, as shown here. The expansion allowed text-to-speech as a designated support for the reading sources contained within the ELA performance task. Text-to-speech is still an accommodation for the reading passages within the ELA CAT. This designated support is recommended only for students identified as struggling readers who may have difficulties accessing the PT source text. It is not intended to be activated for all students within the class. Inappropriate or undocumented use of text-to-speech for the ELA CAT can result in a test impropriety and potential invalidation of a student's test. Please refer to the Oregon Accessibility Manual for more guidance. This slide details the difference in text-to-speech between the ELA CAT and the ELA PT. See the respective tables of the Oregon Accessibility Manual for additional details. Let's talk now about the OSAS Math test. In 2022-23, students taking their OSAS Math test in Spanish will be able to use a Spanish text-to-speech designated support. In general, text-to-speech is a good support for students who are struggling readers who may need assistance accessing the assessment by having all or portions of the assessment read aloud. This designated support will require a Spanish language pack to be installed on the student's device, as well as enabling both dual language presentation and text-to-speech in Tide. Here are a couple reminders about the OSAS Math test. First, there are no blueprint changes for 2022-23, which means students will interact with 16 to 18 items on the computer adaptive test, as well as one performance task. Most students will complete their entire test in 75 to 90 minutes. Second, math manipulatives remain available as a non-embedded designated support across all tested grades. For more information on manipulatives, see Table 2.4 and Appendix F in the Oregon Accessibility Manual. Our next topic is scheduling, which ensures students have sufficient time to complete both the OSAS ELA and Mathematics tests. ODE has developed test windows to provide districts with flexibility in scheduling and managing the logistics of test administration. Within these statewide dates, district test coordinators may work with school test coordinators to set and manage any shorter school-level test windows. Federal and state laws require that at least 95% of all students in grades 3 through 8 and 11 participate in state testing in ELA and Math each school year. The statewide test windows for the current school year are shown here. Schools are responsible for testing all students enrolled on the first school day in May. Students who enroll after the first school day in May will not be included in the school's accountability calculations. However, they still may be tested. The complete list of OSAS test windows can be found in Appendix A of the TAM. More information about school-level test windows can be found in Training Module 1 and Section 5.2 of the TAM. More details about remote administration can be found later in this training module. From the time a student begins the CAT or PT portion of either the OSAS, ELA, or Math test, they have 20 calendar days to complete the assigned assessment. If the student does not complete this portion of the test within these 20 calendar days, it will expire. This is a change from the previous expiration period of 45 days and is designed to reduce the overall number of days students spend on statewide testing. See Section 6.4 of the TAM for more information. Here are some guidelines and recommended practices for scheduling the OSAS, ELA, and Math tests. The tests should be given on separate days. Students should finish one before starting the other. Whichever is administered first, students should not have both the tests open at the same time. It is recommended but not required that the CAT be administered first in both content areas. Neither the OSAS, ELA, nor Math tests are timed, meaning students should be allowed to continue working as long as they are making progress. However, schools should use the average testing times in Section 5.1 of the TAM to guide local planning in order to maximize instructional time. As in previous years, ODE will continue to provide Grade 12 ELA and Math testing options. While Grade 12 participation is not mandatory, districts should make the option available for those students who wish to participate for college placement purposes. As a reminder, Senate Bill 744 has suspended assessment of essential skills through the 2023-24 school year, so grade 12 students will not need to retest for purposes of meeting essential skills requirements. ODE will also provide a 10th grade Challenge Up option. Note that this was formerly known as Target Up. The option to take the 11th grade assessment is only available to grade 10 students who have completed advanced coursework in the respective ELA and/or mathematics content area. The decision to target up should be made with the student and their family. Participation during a student's grade 10 year is not required even if the student has successfully completed advanced coursework. If a grade 10 student who challenges up successfully meets the high school achievement standard, the score will be banked and reported in that student's grade 11 year. If the student does not meet the high school achievement standard, that student must retest in their grade 11 year, or the student will be counted as a non-participant. The next topic is test administration, which ensures equitable access for all students. This slide begins a list of test administration guidelines. First, ensure that the test administrator has activated the assessment for the correct content area. Second, all instructional visuals, stimuli, and posters must be removed from the physical testing environment. And third, test administrators should have read the approved directions from the test administration manual before beginning the assessment. Test coordinators and test administrators should ensure that all embedded designated supports and accommodations are set and tied for students who should have access. An embedded feature is one that is delivered in the secure browser as part of the test interface. An example of an embedded designated support is Spanish presentation for a student's math assessment. An example of an embedded accommodation is text-to-speech for the ELA CAT. As a reminder, accommodations require documentation in a student's IEP or Section 504 plan. Decisions around both designated supports and accommodations are to be made with the student's school support team, the student themselves, and the student's family. Similarly, test administrators should make available any non-embedded universal tools and/or designated supports for students who need them. A non-embedded feature is one that exists outside of the testing interface. An example of a non-embedded universal tool is scratch paper. An example of a non-embedded designated support is the use of math manipulatives. An example of a non-embedded accommodation is the use of a scribe. Finally, we offer a caution. Historical data shows that adult-initiated behaviors are the leading cause of reported test improprieties. Ensuring that all test administration in your school and district are consistent in these administration practices will greatly reduce the risk of test improprieties and, at worst, invalidated student tests. Scratch paper is one example of a non-embedded universal tool available to all students. Scratch paper may be securely retained between testing sessions for the performance task, but it may not be retained for the CAT. If retained between test sessions, test administrators must direct students to write their names or some appropriate identifying information on their scratch paper and then collect and inventory each sheet at the end of each test session. Retained scratch paper must be kept in a securely locked room or cabinet that can only be opened by authorized staff. When students have completed and submitted their test, all retained scratch paper should be securely shredded. One embedded universal tool available to all students is the ability for tests to be paused at any time. When a student selects the pause button on the screen, that student will get a warning message to verify they want to pause. If an ELA or math test is paused fewer than 20 minutes, a student may review questions already answered. If an ELA or math test is paused for 20 minutes or more, a student may not review or change questions already answered. If a test is active but idle for over 20 minutes, the system will automatically pause the test. In both ELA and mathematics, if a test is paused for 20 minutes or more during the CAT portion, a student is required to log back into the student interface. After logging in, that student will return to the item they were working on or the subsequent item if they submitted their response. The student will not be permitted to review or change previously answered items. There are no pause restrictions for the ELA or math performance task. If a test is paused for 20 minutes or more, the student can return to the section and continue typing their response. Please note, however, that students may not navigate between Segment 1 and Segment 2 on the ELA performance task. While noted previously, the introduction of math manipulatives into the testing environment presents administrative and logistical challenges that require consideration and planning. Some of these considerations are reiterated here, namely, manipulatives must be on the list of allowable manipulatives. They must be provided to the student before the test session begins, and they must be provided in a sealed bag or container. Students may not be coached in the use of manipulatives nor prompted to use them. DTCs, STCs, and TAs should collaboratively plan effective and efficient procedures to support the use of math manipulatives. This section covers the key elements of the OSAS ELA and mathematics tests. The OSAS ELA and math tests are adaptive, which means the question difficulty adjusts as the student works through the test, providing either easier or more difficult items based on correct and incorrect student responses. Students will interact with different items, such as multiple choice, where there is a single correct response, multiple select, where there are multiple correct responses, hot text or text highlighting, drag and drop, matching items, and other table interactions. Some items are technology enhanced or enabled to allow students to enter an equation or create a graph. For more information about item types, please refer to the Resources section later in this module. The OSAS ELA test combines 4 elements, or claims, of English language arts into one test: reading, writing, listening, and research. Students will receive an overall composite score as well as claim scores for reading and writing. As in previous years, listening items will require each student to have a headset. Students at all tested grades will be required to participate in a performance task, which will require them to write an extended essay. Please check the Oregon Accessibility Manual for specific allowable supports. The OSAS math test also combines 4 areas or claims of mathematics into one test. Claim 1 is concepts and procedures. Claim 2 is problem solving. Claim 3 is communicating reasoning. And Claim 4 is modeling and data analysis. For this school year, students will receive an overall composite score and a Claim 1 score. Schools and districts will still have access to claim and target level data for program evaluation and planning. Again, please check the Oregon Accessibility Manual for specific allowable supports. Desmos calculators continue to be an embedded support within some mathematics items in grades 6 through 8 and grade 11. In grade 6, a 4-function calculator is available. In grades 7 and 8, a scientific calculator is available. In grade 11, a full-function graphing calculator is available. More information about the specific functionality of these calculators can be found on the Desmos website at www.desmos.com/testing/Oregon. Note that the OSAS science test uses the same embedded calculators as those found on the OSAS math test. One final key element of Oregon's statewide tests in ELA and mathematics is data access. As a test administrator, you have access to summative assessment data through the Centralized Reporting System, or CRS, in the OSAS portal. CRS provides educators access to individual student-level results as well as target reports. Target reports show the performance of groups of students on specific assessment targets rather than simply an overall picture. As such, target reports are vital tools for districts and schools to use to better understand the strengths and opportunities within their system. District test coordinators, school test coordinators, and test administrators all have access to these reports and can use them in their collaboration and professional learning. District test coordinators may also choose to grant a district report viewer or school report viewer role to additional educators in the district so they can access these reports without being able to create test sessions. Our final topic are resources that can adequately prepare both teachers and students for Oregon's state tests. There are 2 different practice tests available through the OSAS portal. First is the training test, which is aligned to grade bands. Training tests include 6 to 9 questions and are designed to allow students to try out embedded tools and supports, as well as to interact with each of the different item types. In ELA, training tests are available for grades 3 through 5, grades 6 through 8, and high school. For math, training tests are available in grades 3 through 5, grade 6, grades 7 and 8, and high school. The second are sample tests, which are aligned to specific grades. Sample tests provide students and educators a look at the grade-specific operational assessment. Sample tests include approximately 30 items that vary in difficulty. Scoring guides for the sample tests are available on the OSAS portal under the Resources tab. Both training and sample tests include all embedded universal tools, designated supports, accommodations, and language supports. To most effectively use training and sample tests, it's helpful to consider their purpose. Use the training test if you want to familiarize students with how to navigate the test, including universal tools and embedded supports. Also, use the training test to help students learn how to interact with each of the different item types. Use the sample test if you want students to interact with specific grade level items, or you want students to experience items across all claims. Several documents outline the structure of the OSAS, ELA, and Math tests. Links to access these resources are provided at the end of this slideshow. Educators should spend time looking at these materials to help inform how they prepare students to be successful on each test. Test blueprints indicate the number of items included on each test, how each test is scored, and the depth of knowledge intended to be used by students when answering items. Content specifications list all assessment targets within each claim, as well as the ELA or Math standards aligned to those targets. Item specifications provide task models and appropriate stems for each item type and are broken out by grade level, claim, and target. This slide contains a list of all the linked resources that have been referenced throughout this training. First, the OSAS portal links to all components of the assessment system, including training and sample tests. Second, you can get more information on test blueprints, test design, assessment targets, and the number of items from each claim by visiting the ELA and Math assessment websites. Finally, the Test Administration Manual and Oregon Accessibility Manual provide technical support for districts, schools, and educators. This is a great spot in the presentation to pause and answer the questions on the current slide, as well as ask questions of your district or school test coordinator. We've reached the end of our training module for the OSAS, ELA, and Math state tests. Thank you very much for your time and attention.